Right, so let's talk escalating gags. This is Earned Happy Endings, Manic Picks Our Dream Girl series, and our series on Presto. And we've talked about our different characters and how they're introduced, and then we talked about how the setting and the show is introduced, and now we're going to talk about the action, and how the action establishes margins of safety, and helps keep our alignments. And so if you kind of see a very clear progression in this short, you have introduction of characters, introduction of setting, and now you have the core action before the climax, which, like I said, is a series of escalating gags. I will admit this was one of the hardest sections of my thesis to write because they are really hard to explain, some of these gags, so I'm going to do my best. But if the easier thing to do is to focus less on my descriptions of these gags, watch the film itself, and then think about what I say about what these gags mean in terms of how we feel and align with each character at any point. That's kind of the core information in this section. So all these gags involve the hats, and they are all kind of slowly more and more brutal after this initial just Alec avoiding Presto's grab. So they also all follow the basic premise of Presto needing Alec to cooperate and Alec refusing to do so. So with each new hat gag, the abuse towards Presto becomes more and more brutal. And what starts as humiliation turns into actual physical pain. And so this is very dark and complicated territory that the filmmakers handle very delicately, and they set up each gag so that the rabbit either triggers the gag by accident or is justified in his aggression. And that's really important because the big key to Presto is making Alec a sympathetic protagonist as opposed to a villain. And so the first escalation is a small one. Presto refuses to satisfy Alec's demands, so Alec hits Presto's hand against the table. It is a minor show of force in response to Presto's mistreatment, and it indicates what Alec is capable of. This does not change things for Presto, and instead of cooperating, he reacts with fury. So this is key. Now we see his quick temper on top of his incompetence and his arrogance. So after he tries to save face in front of that ever-present audience, he starts to storm off stage towards Alec in this kind of threatening manner. And that's a key moment because Alec immediately responds in terror. And so we see his ears stick up, kind of much like Tinny's plume, Lifted's helmet. So you see his ears stick straight up and his eyes go wide, and he once again looks like the innocent and adorable bunny. But most importantly, this establishes Presto as an actual threat towards Alec. So we need to know that Presto is equally as capable of hurting Alec as Alec is at hurting Presto. We want to see them as a clash of equals, as opposed to one taking advantage of the other. And so we also need to think that Alec is responding with legitimate self-defense here. So the next gag is another escalation, but also sets up how the crowd will play into the rest of the film. Because at this point, the audience just has had awkward silence as Presto fails to produce a trick. But then Alec booby traps the hat with a mouse trap. And so Presto pulls his hand out in pain with the trap attached. So they do see how that wormhole works. And so they think it's part of a trick. They think it's comedic, and they start applauding. So now, from that point forward, they will react to every abuse leveled at Presto by Alec because they think it's one of Presto's tricks. So it's kind of the key ultimate revenge here is that this audience that could be sympathetic actually just thinks it's part of the show, and it would be very hard to convince them otherwise. So I'm trying to avoid this little glare here. At this point, Alec reminds Presto of what he's really doing this for, because once again he pantomimes eating the carrot, and gestures towards the hat. All he wants is Presto to throw that carrot through, and this will all be over. So this is another key moment because it gives Presto an out. It gives him a chance to end this silly competition, to go on with the show, get what he wants. So it's important to note that this would satisfy Presto's goal at the same time as satisfy Alec's. But Presto refuses out of stubbornness and pride. Not only does he not send the carrot through, he tries to reverse the dynamic and throw an egg at Alec through the hat. So it's like a moment of pettiness to add to the already long list of reasons to dislike Presto. And because he has an out here, you kind of see that now he's fueled by something beyond a desire for his show to work. Now he wants revenge on Alec. And so, again, long list of reasons not to like Presto. But that being said, his punishment is swift due to the egg, and because Alec kind of instinctually flips the hat up and unintentionally sends the egg right back through into Presto's face. And so Presto is forced to grimace with egg on his eye as he takes a bow before the applauding audience who think it's a trick. So, like you see, this is constantly escalating. The relationship is changing. We're learning new things about these characters through these actions, but we're also getting classic cartoon gags to laugh at. So the next joke is equally cruel on Presto's part. He teases Alec by turning the carrot into a flower. So it's a really low blow. And it's also a cheesy magician's gag that does nothing for Presto's act, except to rub Alec's hunger in his face. So, like I said, it hits Alec where he's most vulnerable, and it kind of emphasizes that shift in goals for Presto. He doesn't really seem to care about the good show anymore, and he really just cares about revenge. So it's kind of hit this really low moment of pettiness and antagonism. It's kind of ugly. And pulling the focus from the show to the conflict also forces us, the viewers, to take sides. And it's kind of obvious who we're going to choose at this point, because Presto's move is so petty. It's very easy to be on the side of the cute and innocent bunny. And so that's important because the next gag is slightly cruel. More than slightly. It's quite violent compared to the others, because Alec's next move is to put the hat up to a nearby air vent so that Presto's head gets sucked through. So it's the most brutal prank yet, but it was also, like I just talked extensively about, preceded by the cruelest taunt yet. So Alec is actually responding to something equal in cruelty. And so it gives this gag this kind of safety net where we don't feel like we're cruel when we laugh at it, because he is doing this to someone who we think deserves it. And that by doing that, it protects Alec from being unlikable. We don't automatically kind of push him away in our sympathies. We're still on his side, because we think the vent is something Presto deserves, since he is the one who made this a war as opposed to a disagreement between friends. And so Presto comes out of this prank with a flushed red face and his hair sticking up all over and the egg still on his face. So this is kind of in stark contrast to his pomposity, at the beginning of the short, and his appearance will continue to kind of reflect his slowly deteriorating inner state and add to his humiliation. So his crazed appearance also reflects the manic energy of the short after this point, where the gags will start to happen faster and be more reactionary than calculated. Alec tries one more time to remind Presto of his goal by gesturing about the carrot, but at this point Presto is too deranged to even acknowledge his request.